Crash. The sound of a brick smashing into metal ripped through the calm of our suburban street. I froze, watching through my phone as Margaret Langley, the iron-fisted queen of Willow Creek's HOA, lobbed another brick at my shiny, new red Mustang. Her face was a mask of fury, her platinum blonde bob barely twitching as she screeched about my tacky eyesore, ruining the pristine VYB of our gated community. Little did she know, her reign of terror was about to crash harder than those bricks. I'm Nathan Carter, a true crime podcaster who just moved into Willow Creek 6 months ago. After my series on corporate fraud hit big, I could finally afford a place in this upscale neighborhood. Think perfectly trimmed hedges and cookie-cutter mansions, oozing wealth. It seemed like the ideal spot, quiet, orderly, close to my recording studio. What the realtor conveniently forgot to mention was Margaret, a former ad exec who'd ruled the HOA for 12 years straight. She wasn't just strict, she was a tyrant, enforcing rules with a mix of threats and selective nitpicking that kept everyone in line. Most folks just bowed their heads to avoid her wrath. I met Margaret 3 days after moving in. She showed up at my door, clutching a leather-bound Willow Creek Code of Elegance. Her lips pursed like she'd bitten a lemon. "Mr. Carter," she said, skipping any small talk, "your front door is the wrong shade of navy." I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. "It's midnight navy," she snapped, flipping open her binder to a color chart. "Our standard is coastal navy. Repaint it by next week." I stared at the two nearly identical swatches, tempted to laugh. "They look the same," I said. Her eyes narrowed. To an untrained eye, perhaps. But precision is our community's backbone. That was my welcome to Margaret's world. Over the next few months, her citations piled up. My lawn was 1/8 of an inch too long. My porch light was too bright. My recycling bin was 2 inches off center. It was clear she'd zeroed in on me, the new guy who didn't yet know to fall in line. My neighbor, Jamal Harris, a retired firefighter with a sharp wit, filled me in one evening over beers on his patio. "She does this to everyone new," he said, chuckling. "It's her power trip. When I moved in, she tried to find me for my kid's basketball hoop. I quoted the city ordinance that allows it. She backed off mostly. I leaned in, curious. What's her deal? Why is she so obsessed?" Jamal shrugged. "Word is, she got passed over for a big promotion right before she retired. Some say it was her age. Others say she was too cutthroat. This HOA's her empire now. Just watch her back." I should have listened closer, but things didn't really ignite until I bought my Mustang. Bright red, sleek, and my first real splurge after the podcast success. The day it arrived, Jamal texted me. "Heads up, Margaret just stormed past my house muttering about VY Sewell atrocities. Buckle up." Sure enough, a violation notice appeared on my door by noon, citing my car's disruptive coloration. I checked the HOA bylaws, nothing about car colors. I called Margaret. "The bylaws say external features must enhance aesthetics," she said, her voice cold as ice. "It's a car, not a lawn ornament," I shot back. "No rule bans red." She paused, then said, "Not yet," and hung up. The next day, flyers went up announcing an emergency HOA meeting to review ISE exterior color rules. Problem was, it was scheduled while I'd be in Chicago for a podcast convention. I called the HOA secretary, begging for a postponement or proxy vote. She sounded apologetic but firm. Margaret banned proxy voting for special meetings last year. I was stuck. While I was gone, Jamal kept me posted via text. The meeting was a circus Margaret rammed through a new bylaw banning primary colored vehicles from being parked via Sibley on properties or streets. Existing cars were grandfathered but had to be garaged when not in use. The vote barely passed, with plenty of residents sitting it out. "She's targeting you, man," Jamal texted. "Enforcement starts tomorrow." I was due back the next day, still fuming on my flight home. As my plane taxied to the gate, my phone lit up with a VY Deo call from Jamal. His face was grim. "Nathan, you gotta see this. Margaret just pulled up to your place in her husband's truck. She's unloading. Are those bricks?" The feed shifted to his window, and there she was, Margaret, in her designer blazer, hauling bricks like a woman possessed. My jaw dropped as she hefted one. I'm on Mustang like a sniper, and crash smashed it into the hood. A dent bloomed in the red paint. "Call the cops," I told Jamal, my voice shaking. "I'm still at the airport, but I'm coming." "Already on it," he said, his phone wobbling as he dialed. "And I'm recording everything." What Margaret didn't know was that my Mustang had a top-tier security system, 360-degree cameras that kicked on at the first sign of trouble. Plus, after getting death threats from my fraud series, I'd installed HD cameras around my house, covering every angle. As my Uber sped toward Willow Creek, I opened the Mustang's app and watched live as Margaret went to town. Each brick hit with a sickening thud, her voice dripping venom. "This'll teach you to respect our standards." I triggered the car's alarm horns blared. Lights flashed. She flinched but kept going, shouting, "You don't scare me, you troublemaker." Just as my Uber turned onto my street, I saw them. 5 police cruisers, lights blazing, swarming my driveway. Margaret was so caught up she didn't notice until an officer's loudspeaker boomed. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle and drop the projectile." She spun, brick in hand, her face morphing from rage to shock. "Do you know who I am?" she bellowed. "I'm the HOA president. This car violates our bylaws." The officer stayed calm. "Put down the brick, ma'am." She doubled down, insisting my property was under her jurisdiction. "It's Mr. Carter's property," the officer corrected, "and you're committing felony vandalism." When she hurled one last brick at my windshield, cracking the glass, but not breaking it, cops moved in, cuffing her as she shrieked about suing them and name-dropped the mayor, claiming he was her husband's buddy. I stepped out of the Uber just as they read her rights. Jamal jogged over, still filming, and grinned. Perfect timing. I called in a favor at my old station, but I didn't expect soft 5-saw cars. I admitted, might be my fault the Mustang system auto-alerts the police for major damage. A burly officer, Sergeant Daniels, approached. "Mr. Carter, we've got your vandal in custody. Need your statement." As we spoke, neighbors gathered, whispering and gawking. Margaret, now in a cruiser, was still yelling, her face as red as my car. I surveyed the damage. 8 bricks had turned my Mustang into a dented mess. "I'm pressing charges," I told Daniels, showing him my phone. "I've got live footage, audio, the works." His eyes widened. "That's thorough." Another officer interrupted, looking puzzled. "She's demanding to call the mayor. Says he'll fix this misunderstanding." Daniel snorted. "Let her call from the station." I glanced at Jamal, who mouthed, "Her husband." It hit me. Her husband, Richard Langley, ran Langley Stone Development, a company I'd exposed in my podcast for shady city contracts. "Sergeant," I said, "this might matter. My latest series dug into municipal corruption. Langley Stone was named. The DA just announced indictments based on my work." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You saw that, saw Nathan Carter? My brother binged your podcast. So, her trashing your car right after those indictments." I nodded. Could be a coincidence, but the timing's suspicious. A sleek black SUV pulled up, and out stepped Lieutenant Gomez from Major Crimes. After a quick huddle with Daniels, she approached. "Mr. Carter, given your role in the Langley Stone case, we're treating this as possible retaliation. We'll need your footage ASAP, and we're adding patrols to your street." I was stunned but grateful. As we spoke, Margaret was moved to an unmarked car and driven off. The remaining officers photographed every dent, every brick, while my Mustang was towed to a police lot for forensic analysis. Gomez promised they'd work with my insurance to speed up repairs. By dusk, the street was quiet again. Jamal and I stood by my empty driveway. "Hell of a day," he said, smirking. "You know what's next, right? Emergency HOA meeting. Margaret's out, and they'll need a new president." I laughed. "You running?" He shook his head. "No way. That power corrupts. But you? You'd shake things up." I waved him off, but the idea lingered. The next morning, Willow Creek was abuzz. The HOA board, desperate to ditch Margaret's shadow, voted her out and scrapped the car color rule. The new president, Samuel Lee, stopped by with coffee and an apology. "We're sorry about your car," he said. "We're changing things: supermajority votes, proxy voting, an appeals board. We'd love your input, given your knack for digging up truth." I hesitated but agreed to add VYSE, not lead. My podcast kept me too busy for politics. Margaret's legal woes snowballed. She faced felony vandalism, intimidation, and shockingly conspiracy charges after cops found texts tying her stunt to her husband's legal mess. She took a plea: probation, restitution for my car, 500 hours of community service, and a restraining order. The Langleys tried to sell their house, but their reputation and Margaret's habit of alienating neighbors scared off buyers. Richard was indicted soon after, and cornered, he flipped on his cronies, unraveling a decade of city corruption my podcast had helped expose. My Mustang came back a month later, gleaming like new. The car company used my footage in an ad campaign, showcasing their security tech, and threw in a free upgrade. Jamal's VY Deo of Margaret's meltdown went VY Rao, landing him on local news. "Never thought I'd be famous at 50, he joked. Under Samuel's leadership, Willow Creek softened less fear, more community. Property values even climbed. Pro-VYing Margaret's standards were nonsense. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I'd been home that day. Could I have stopped her? Would she have come at me instead? In a weird way, I'm glad it played out like this. Margaret's meltdown didn't just free Willow Creek, it fueled the corruption case that's still making headlines. My red Mustang sits proudly in my driveway, a middle finger to petty tyrants. And those bricks? I turn them into a backyard patio, a reminder that even the worst attacks can build something stronger.